Good day. Hi there, everybody. I'd like to welcome all of you to our next chat I'm having with Mattyhs van Lill. Matthys is somebody that I've known for many years. And he's a great photographer, a person I really respect. He's worked with me at the Pixel Foundry as a photographer, and he's really a great guy. So we're going to be asking him some questions about how he got into the business, what it's like being a photographer in these times, and yeah, his favorite work and what advice he can give to any of those guys going out there wanting to take pictures and become a photographer. So Matthys, welcome to our chat and nice having you on. It's been quite a while.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me for the interview.
It's a pleasure, man. Tell me, what got you into photography? Why photography? Or where did you start?
It all started, I finished matric in 98, and I actually wanted to go study architecture. And at that stage, there was limited amounts of people allowed at the Technikon. So by the time I enrolled, they were already full. And I had photography at school as a subject. So the next best thing was to try get into a photography class, which then happened. So after 98, 99, I enrolled, did 2 years of studying photography, and it's a 3-year course. Most people finish their 3 years, but when I went over to the 3rd year, a friend of mine said to me, listen, he was already in the industry. He said to me, listen, they're not really going to look at your certificate at the end of the day. And it was very much film based back then. So he had an opportunity for me to go work at a great film lab at the stage called Creative Color, which was one of the big film labs. You would also remember, I think.
I know it very well. I mean, I got all my film process there, and you're working with Ernie and Dennis Sprong and all those guys. Yeah, really great lab. They were my lab for many, many years.
Now, we remember you as a very demanding client back then, as most of the photographers were. There I got exposed to the industry, obviously, because coming from a Technikon, you don't really know what's going on in the industry. And you kind of learn the photographers, the way they work, you get to know their assistants, and just generally how the industry work. Which was a bit more experience for me than doing a 3rd year at Technikon. So from there on, I got exposed to photographers, more the international side of things. So I went to knock on a couple of production companies' doors. And things were pretty easy back then, getting into production companies. There was no groups that you had to be a member of. I started as a 3rd assistant on set, just carrying stands, sandbags, making coffee, that kind of thing. And then you slowly move up in the ranks. And then I did a bit of assisting in a video production company as well. And at that stage, things were slowly changing from film to digital. And nobody really knew what this digital thing was going to bring, or if it's going to work out or not. And again, another friend that I spoke to said to me, listen, get into the digital side, because all the guys are focusing on film at the moment, but when the digital thing takes over, they're not going to know what's going on. So that was 2003. And at that stage, there was a limited amount of people doing it, including the Pixel Foundry. So I quickly went, there was no Google at that stage. So I quickly just asked a couple of people, and they were all talking about the Pixel Foundry. And I was like, okay, cool, let me go and try and sneak through the back door there. And yeah, that's where I met you guys, and started assisting in the digital side of things. Which taught me a lot, because back then you were just either a film loader, or you were carrying gear, or you didn't really do anything on a computer, never mind a digital camera that was all film. So yeah, that opened my eyes a little bit to a different side of the industry, and yeah, that's where the industry is now. It's mainly digital.
Yeah, and it was interesting. I mean, without blowing your I forget what this blowing your trumpet or whatever they're saying is, but without a shadow of a doubt, you were definitely, if not the best, or one of my best assistants I've ever had. And, you've gone on to greater things since then. There are a lot of guys who are wanting to get into the business, and young guys are getting in, and you've got assistants now who work for you and do things. What can you say to those guys that they need to learn about the industry before coming on set, having a bit of set etiquette, and then breaking into the industry?
I would say go get a basic background in photography. There's many of these classes. I think ORMS has got a very basic one that you can do. And the only reason why I'm going to say this is because, and you would know the same, as professional photographers, you don't always get a chance to teach the guy about apertures and shutter speeds and that kind of thing. That they should know already when they want to come assist. I think the days of doing 3-year courses are gone. But if you can do like a 2-month course in basic photography. The other thing is, and that's one thing that I do find with a lot of new assistants that's coming through the digital age, is they don't concentrate. Everything is very quick. If you talk, they hear two words out of the sentence, and they don't commit to following the whole process through. So if you ask them to go do something, they hear 2 words and they don't listen to the other. Then they come back to you and say, sorry, what did you ask me again? So I think concentration is a big thing. Listening, understanding what you're going to do. If you don't understand, ask the photographer or whoever you're working for, ask them what you're going to do. And then basic etiquette, like dress well. A lot of the guys don't dress like a professional person. Dress well, and respect the older people. A lot of the guys are 21, 20, 23 years old, and most of us old people are 40 and above.
Some of us a lot more than that.
Yeah, we come from a different background where you still had respect for somebody else, the person that you work with, and the guys these days, not all of them, a lot of them do come from where the mother and the father obviously taught them a lot of respect, but a lot of the guys they tend to sit on their phone, or they don't go and look after the client when you're busy as a photographer. And I think that's more important than knowing a camera in the beginning. If you want to be a dedicated assistant to a photographer, then prove yourself to be always there for the person that needs something before you even touch the camera or the computer. You need to know how to make the coffee, clean up, do this, do that, and people don't have to ask you to do it. You should just know to do that. The same as you would clean up in your mother's kitchen. And if you didn't do that, then that's obviously where the problem lies.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, it's so true. I tried to instill that in all my assistants over the years. You're going to be able to do everything, and the guys must understand they're part of the team. And if they don't function properly in listening to the photographer, listening to the people, the team is going to start breaking down, because they've got to understand that, and they've got to understand their role in that team. And then just moving on. So you've obviously got into having your own studio. You've done very well. You're doing some great work. What work is your real passion? What do you really enjoy doing the most?
I think what was a great thing back in the days when I worked at the Pixel Foundry, obviously I was exposed to a lot of different types of photography. So we had food photography, beverage, jewelry, automotive, fashion. And I think because I had that whole background, the key thing on all of those kind of things is your lighting, obviously. And out of all of those things, I took the food and beverage side, as it's kind of the two industries that work for me the best together is drink and food. So that's what I specialize in at the moment. Unfortunately, we can't all go and say we are only that kind of photographer.
The market's not big enough here.
Yeah, you have to take the jobs that come to you, and if you don't feel comfortable, you can always say, look, I don't feel comfortable doing that. That's not quite my thing. but please go use Jack that specialize in X, Y, and Z. But yeah, so what I've done is I've set up a studio for food and beverage. So it's got a kitchen space, and the whole layout is for kitchen. It's not for fashion. It doesn't have infinity curves and stuff like that, because I don't shoot fashion. So I think that's a big thing when you get to your senior side, that you start direct yourself in a position where you feel comfortable and that you can live on. It doesn't help you trying to do something that there's no market for. The automotive market was huge back in the days, and there's a little bit of it left, not much actually. So I think that's also a thing. You have to reinvent yourself the whole time. But for now, the food and beverage industry will remain, I think, pretty much for the next 10 years, hopefully.
Yeah, look, I hope so. I mean, although I think the food will, but I think the beverage market, there's more and more coming in with CGI type stuff that people are doing bottles. I've lost a lot to that, also specializing in that side, and a lot of guys are doing that aspect of it. And then just so on these shoots that you've been doing, what are the most? Have you got any particular ones that are really memorable, or things that you can remember that you think stand out? Any funny moments that you can tell us about on your shoots?
We've actually, and something that was quite interesting, and I've told a lot of people this, that threw me completely out of my comfort zone, was we did a shoot now recently, just before this whole lockdown happened, which was harvest time for a wine label called Fleer de Cup, which falls under the Distel brand. And it's interesting because previously we would all shoot the bottles, the cocktails, the whatever, we'll all make it look pretty. But I've never been part of harvesting. I don't think anybody's really done that part of the wine industry, although we're all in it, but we've never really experienced it like directly being on the farms. And that was quite interesting. In the beginning, I was a bit skeptic on saying yes, because it's much more flowing, it's more freehand, you don't have time to put lights up, and you're shooting at 5 o'clock in the morning, and you can only shoot till about 9 o'clock in the morning because of the light. The farmers also start very early. They wake up at 4, and they've got the guys in the vineyards, and they basically take a vineyard down in an hour, which I've never seen in my life, but they do. Those guys work hard. And I think that for me and my assistant, that was something very unique to experience, all the way through from harvesting right through to they take it to Nederburg to go where they obviously do the wine. Unfortunately, we couldn't get that part. We didn't finish that part because lockdown came a bit early, but we saw enough to obviously get the whole idea of how the whole wine process works. And yeah, although it wasn't the best shoot in my life, I think it taught me a lot. And it taught me not to be in a comfortable position where you only have your studio and you tell your stylist what to do. You have to think, and you have to judge the sun, and you ride your ISOs and your shutter speeds up and down, and it's quick. And if you don't get the shot, you don't get the shot. And your client expects 100 shots on each day that you're doing it, so that they can use it online, obviously, for social media. And I think that's where our industry is going a lot more now, is the online media thing. So that's changed our industry completely. But for me, yeah, being out in the field in a dusty environment, in the sun, running around, and 10 o'clock is your cut-off time, and you don't even have time to drink a bottle of water, that was something that I would never forget. It's tiring, but pleasing, yeah.
Yeah, and food has obviously been a big part of your side of doing things. You obviously enjoy shooting that. When you're doing it, do you get to eat much of the food, or is it, there's so many people talk. I mean, I know how we do the food, and that there's so many stories about what one does to the food and all that. And I think things have changed a lot since the 70s and 80s when I started in the 80s, the early 80s. So tell us a little bit about your food photography.
Yeah, so food photography is something that I always enjoy, as everybody that knows me, I like braaiing a lot.
We've seen that.
So
yeah.
obviously, so obviously, out of all the food photography, the meat part is my absolute favorite. Yeah, it's just nice working on a food shoot where you have. For me, it's about working with the stylists and seeing how they prepare the stuff so quickly that you can get the shot, and you do 12 shots in a day. But they prepare everything so well, and the whole system that's created to get the food on the plate in front of you, get the shot, have two options, and then move on. And like you said, like everything has changed from the, I would say, the 90s, early 2000s, where yes, you can eat the food now. Although I don't know what's going to happen now after the COVID. I think we're going to go back to, oh, sorry, we can't eat the food, cheers. Which will be a big shame. And maybe I'll still take the risk there, I don't know. Just fry it up again.
Absolutely, yeah. The COVID dies at 70 degrees anyway, so... so the meat will be good, you cook it.
But yeah, I think it's also the food industry is a very creative industry, and with all the stylists and the bloggers coming on board and all the recipe people, it's become an art form. It's always been an art form, but I think it's seen more as an art form now than it was 10 years ago. And I think it's a good thing. There's a lot of people that's made industry out of the food industry, where it was a very niche thing back in the days. It's a very bigger industry at the moment, especially with digital coming into the field, which is very interesting. You can do, I think you mentioned the other day in one of your programs, you can do TV and you can do a book, but that can also be going online, and there's so many different uses that you can get out of it, which makes the industry very interesting. To expand in that way.
No, absolutely, and just talking about the film side, I've had to do a little bit now and shoot a little bit on the film, although I'm far more comfortable shooting stills. How have you find? Because you obviously had an initial training in film, so are you doing more film and stills? Are clients asking more of that for their social media stuff?
It is something that's become very demanding from clients, having budgets that's smaller, and unfortunately our stills cameras can also shoot video. So you don't have to go rent a video camera anymore because it's built in. So the demand is bigger. However, I look at the job, and if you can squeeze it in, you can. Most of it would be for online, obviously, and social media. If it's bigger jobs where it's mainly video and not stills, then obviously you try and get like you mentioned, you try and get a bigger crew, because you either need to direct, you can't be on the camera and direct and run the lights around. So I think, and it's also, I've been in that industry for a little bit back in the days. And I think for photographers to take on massive jobs and to think they can just do it by themselves is wrong. They should also respect the film industry for being there.
I couldn't agree more. You are so right there.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line between just pulling a job off and doing it properly. And if you want to do it properly, especially like, our names is on there. If you want to do it properly, you try and get the budget, even if you must make the budget happen. Sometimes you just have to give something up to get to the bigger scale. But it's worth getting the focus puller or the proper camera or the proper lighting guy on set. Where with a little bit of a Instagram video, yes, you can just roll a couple of seconds, stitch it together, and put a little soundtrack on it, and it looks great. But it's social media. It's quick things that people watch on their phone and they skip it or whatever. But if it's something bigger, if it's something that goes towards an ad or a program, I still think you should weigh it up and see, will I be able to pull it off, or should I rely on the crew to help me here and advise? And it was quite interesting. I listened to the program where you had the guy from Farm productions.
Pete Sherlock, yeah.
Yes, and he was also saying that South Africa's got crews and very good crews that we can use here, and we all work together. And I think that's when you rely on a company, say for instance a production company or whatever. You can still direct it, or you can, if you want to do the DOP version of it, you can still go do that. But have a crew behind you to back up your name and to get the production out as good and quick as possible. And I would be the first person that say that my editing skills is terrible. So I would also take it to somebody to go edit it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm editing these and they're very simple. And, you know, I can do anything in Photoshop and I can do anything in Capture One. I mean, you know, but editing's a completely different ballgame. And I think we need to respect people's professions. We need to respect people who are professional at what they do. And don't think you can just suddenly walk in and do what somebody's been doing for 20 or 30 years and just think, oh, well, I can do it. It's easy. I've got a camera. No, we must respect other people's professions and things. You know, the other side that a lot of people fall short on is running their business. And you've obviously got a knack for that because you've built yourself a good business out at the moment. You're running a good studio and that. How did you get your business side? Do you have people to help you along the way, or is it just something that's come naturally to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that's a very vital thing to know as a photographer, but I think anybody in any industry should know should try do a little business course. I didn't do one. I learned from hard knocks and other people's mistakes and questions, and but I think I mean I think me and you, we'll still be learning business kind of things as the world changes, and you have to read up and you have to go talk to people that's professional in that side of things. It's something that I think our generation of kids that's going through school, they are being taught the business side of things, and small business is apparent, especially is the small business side of things, where we didn't have that back in the days. And I think taking a business forward, even being a photographer, promoting yourself, invoicing, all those kind of things, you don't know those things when you start off. Nobody teaches you that kind of stuff. So either you go see somebody and you pay that person to do it for you, and you unfortunately you will spend money, or you try and do it yourself. And yeah, it's something that I would advise any young person coming in to any industry, is go do a small business course. That can help you so much, especially if it comes to invoicing and following up with clients and promoting yourself. It's all one big thing. And I'm sure you will agree that if you can be the best photographer in the world, but if you don't invoice your client,
you're not going to get paid. Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, it's so important that we get out there. And just in closing, just a little quick thing about where you think the business is going, and where do you think photography is going to be down the line? I know it's a big question, and I don't know if anybody can really answer that. But what's your gut feeling for when we get back to working and things maybe get back to normality? Well, I don't know if they ever will, but after this. But what do you think is gonna, your gut feeling?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, like you said, it is a difficult question because nobody knows what lies behind the curtain, and I think we will have some hard knocks. But I think it leaves a room open for people that's got great ideas, and also, and I know that's what your program stands for, is to try and work together. I think previously, and I think that's one thing that we can take out of this lockdown, is previously people tried to work all by themselves. They didn't try and invite people into their group, or they didn't want to share. And for me, I saw that happening more and more over the last couple of years. People don't share information. They don't want to involve the other person in their project because X, Y, and Z issues. And I think hopefully if we want to carry on doing what we're doing in this industry, and nobody knows what's going to happen to the rand dollar or whatever the story is going to be, but to support one another in the industry. And I think Cape Town is not too bad with it, but we can do better. We can help the younger guys coming in, give them some advice. We can still ask the older guys in the industry advice if you don't know what you're doing, or and help each other, bring each other into your industry and help them. So I think that's the only advice that I can give going forward is we all need to work together. If you're not sure or you need help, ask. Don't be shy.
I mean, I think that's great advice, and I as you know, it's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm a great advocate of that, and I believe in sharing information, and I think I have throughout my career. And I think it's terribly important that we share this information, and we've learned all this stuff, and to make it better at the end of the day. And so I'd really like to see that happening. And also you were mentioning bloggers earlier. Bloggers are taking their own pictures. Well, why don't they get together with a photographer and actually have great content, great photography, and great blogging, and do something? There's so many collaborations out there that people can do and work together to create great content, which is what we're all doing. So Matthys, so in closing, thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and advice, and letting us into your world and your photography. And I think a lot of people will learn from this. So thanks very much. And then just to all you guys out there who've been watching this, and wanting to become photographers, young people who wanting to become assistants, listen to what Matthys had to say there. It's great advice. It's going to help you get into the industry, and go and talk to the photographers, go and talk to people like Matthys, find out what they're doing, even if you've got to work for free for a few days or whatever, to actually show what you're capable and your enthusiasm. These guys will help you along the way. And if any of you got any questions you want to ask of Matthys, DM me or write in the comments below, and hopefully either one of us will be able to answer them, and I'll pass them on to him, and I'm sure he'll be willing to answer any questions you have. So thanks a lot, Matthys.
Yeah, thank you for the interview, and for all the guys that's young, want to go get out there, good luck. And like Malcolm said, it starts with basic assisting. Get that done, build your bricks up from the foundation, don't take shortcuts, and just generally be a nice person and share. And hopefully things will get back to what we used to know as normal. And that will open up gaps for younger people coming in the industry, and for us all to just work together and build the industry back up to what it used to be.